Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I'm going to walk you through how to make an easy but elegant DIY wedding invitation. This video is brought to you by Totally Dazzled, and they are the makers of these really pretty ribbon slides and buckles that I'm going to be sharing with you today. And we're basically going to go through a basic gatefold card, and I'm going to share tips and tricks as you go to kind of save a little money on postage, save money on materials, kind of edit your design so it's not taking you forever to make these invitations, because whenever you're making a lot of something, the time can really add up. And I'm going to show you different options on how you can customize these invitations to meet your needs. So this, of course, is the basic design, very simple, just with a little grosgrain ribbon, lace, and a rhinestone buckle embellishment. Remember, these are all the same card, just done with different colors. This one, I decided to do shades of ivory and cream, stack up some ribbons, just make it a little bit different. But again, the style is the same. On this one, I went a little mixed media, and I took my embossed panels, which I'll show you all about in a second, and I just kind of distressed them with some inks and some gesso just to give it more of a rustic feeling. And this burlap ribbon with a little lace trim I thought looked really country and would be really pretty for a beach wedding or a wedding at a cabin or something. I thought it was just really kind of fun and rustic, and that's a really popular trend right now. Now, this last one is probably my favorite because I love how nothing goes to waste. So what I did to start off this is I just made an envelope using my envelope template, and then I actually, and this is a tip for mailing your invitations whenever you have anything bulky, and it also serves as your reply card. What I did was I just took a quarter sheet of cardstock and I stamped a script stamp and a heart, just stamped right on top of each other, very easy to do. And then on the back I can simply put postcard information. I could put a stamp, my return address, and then address it to whoever is getting this invitation and just ask them how many people are coming and what is your meal preference. That way you'll get this back in the mail. It's easier for them to reply to an RSVP because people are kind of bad about RSVPing these days. This makes it really easy. But the other thing that this postcard does is it smooths everything out. So this will be able to go through the machines at the post office without requiring hand canceling or additional postage in most cases. So when you have bulky things like that, it wants to catch in machines at the post office, so by putting this over it, it just makes a nice smooth package to go through the post office. Now, I liked this really soft pink paper, so I used it as the outside of the envelope, but if you want, you could always make your envelope with the white side of the paper out if you think it might be difficult to write on there. And then for a final touch, what I want to show you here, if I remove the belly band there, which I used that, another scrap of that paper that I used to make the envelope, to make the belly band, kind of like a kimono style. I took that other piece and I put it on the inside, and I printed the information, all the wedding information on vellum, and used brads to attach it to the pattern paper. And then I glued the pattern paper onto my card so that I wouldn't have brad holes poking out the back. So that just makes it look a little bit more elegant and polished and professional looking. So to print everything on vellum, what I do is I take a sheet of vellum, and you can get a package of 50 sheets at the craft store like Joann's or Michael's or AC Moore for about $10, and you can print your wedding invitation 4 times on one sheet of vellum, so you can get 200 invitations out of one $10 package of vellum, which is really nice. And then just cut it into quarters, or you could, you know, use a die cut, or you could tear it to give it more of a romantic feel, but it just gives you a really nice option. And I just use brads because adhesive will show through vellum, and it again, it acts as an embellishment and just looks a little more fancy. So that's what's on the inside of each of these invitations I showed you. And you know what you can do here, like on this, this ribbon wants to slide because I didn't glue it down. You can always put a glue dot or a little drop of hot glue on the back of the rhinestone if you don't want it to move. This way is nice because you can actually take it apart and use it for something else if you want to, but actually with hot glue you could even peel that off and still reuse the buckle if your recipient wanted to. So without further ado, now that you got the backstory and you got the kind of an idea of how we're doing all this, let's actually see how it happens. Let's go to the table. We're starting off with a piece of cardstock that is 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches, and this will give you your basic A2 size card. This is a half a sheet of your typical 8.5 by 11 inch cardstock. And what I'm using here is a scoring board, and what I want to do is score 2 1/8 inch from each side. And on this Score Pal scoring board, that's actually marked on my board for ease of use. If you don't have a scoring board, that's fine. You can actually use like a ruler and a butter knife to score your folds. So if you can see there, I've got those little creases, and then what you want to do, you always want to fold on the side that you put the creases on. So I'm flipping it over, folding it, and then flattening it down with my bone folder, just like that. and that gives you a nice sharp crease and helps it stay where you want it. Now the other thing we're going to do here is we're going to put panels on each side of these gates. This is called a gatefold card because the card opens up kind of like a gate. So what I did was I just embossed a piece of cardstock, and you can buy cardstock that's already embossed, and what that means is it has a cool texture on it, and you can choose between kind of organic designs like this damask or flowers like I used. Like this is another example of a damask, or you can use something floral. You can also find geometric shapes. The thing I want to warn you on geometric shapes is that you're going to have to be careful to make sure they line up really well, otherwise they're going to look kind of awkward. This geometric's not so bad because it's got a lot of circles in it, but whenever possible, if you're doing a ton of cards, I recommend a damask just because, or an organic shape, just because you don't have to have it lined up perfectly to look fantastic on this. Same thing if you're buying embossed paper. An organic design is going to give you a lot more options. You're not going to waste so much trying to cut out just the perfect panel. So for this, we're going to trim it down, and I have a little portable trimmer that works really well for this. I know this is 2 1/8 by 5 1/2, so I'm going to trim this down to, and I think I've already trimmed this to 5 1/4. Yep, I've already trimmed that down to about 5 1/4. So I just need to trim this to like 1 3/4 inches. So I'm going to make 2 1 3/4 inch panels here. Now I'm going to keep this card all white on white because it will be it'll be the simplest, and once you're making a bunch of these, like 50 or 100 or 200, you're really going to appreciate not having to take extra steps. But if you're only making like a dozen or so, you could always you know, brush the embossed panel with a little bit of ink, or even add another layer in there like I did with this one here and with this one. So it's completely up to you on how much time you have to work on your cards. And on this one, I don't know if I showed you that at the beginning, but I just took die cut corners that I had those die cuts for years anyway, and I just put them on the corner, and it just gives it another elegant look. And I did put a little gray ink on that damask just to make it come out a little bit more, but again, it's going to be beautiful any way you look at it. So the next thing I want to do is adhere this down, but I want to add a little dimension, so I'm going to use some foam tape. And foam tape is basically just like an adhesive that's kind of thick. And this is a thinner foam tape. This is by Simon Says Stamp. You can actually get it at the hardware store too, that's a little bit thicker. It just depends on what you are going for. And this is a huge roll, which might be actually really handy if you were doing a bunch of wedding invitations. You can also use hot glue for this. Sometimes you can get some good dimension with hot glue because it is a little bit thicker. So whatever works for you. Everybody's different. Everybody has their own preferences. Do whatever you prefer. I'm just going to stick these panels down and then move on to the invitation portion. You can use whatever side of the embossed panel that you prefer. I'm using the raised side, but there's nothing wrong with using the back side if you like the way that looks better. The debossed side, it's completely your preference. Nowadays, I don't think there's any right or wrong when it comes to card making or wedding invitations. So many people are doing their own invitations that has become a really kind of a fun way to express your personality. So please don't feel intimidated that your invitations aren't good enough. I'm sure they'll be gorgeous. Just do your best to center that up as good as you can. Whoops. Work quickly. If you do stick it down and you notice it's not right, just quickly peel it back up and you'll have a minute to reposition it. Most adhesives are kind of like that. And also make sure your hands are really clean before you begin working a white and white card so that you don't get any grime on there. So that gives us a little more dimension. It's really quite pretty. So the next thing I want to work on is the inside of the invitation. Here I have an off-white pattern paper, and I just think it's kind of pretty because it's not too specific or descriptive. And I want to add some brads in here to kind of hold this vellum in place and kind of give it a soft romantic look. I want to look at my embellishments too and decide what I'm going to want on the outside of my invitation, because if I'm going to use silver, then I'll probably want to use silver brads on the inside. So I think I'll use these sweet little silver heart brads. I got these years ago. I think I picked them up at Joann's, but you can find brads pretty much in any shape, color, and size that you want. So so don't be shy. Find something that's perfect for what you want. Now I'm just putting a piece of fun foam down on my work surface, and I'm going to use a pin just to poke a hole in each corner. You want to do this rather than trying to push the brad through the vellum, because you'll just end up wrinkling your paper and maybe even bending the brad. So I just do that just to make it a little bit easier. And twirl them around so they're right side up if they're not. You can also just use plain circles too. Those are very pretty. And you don't have to worry if they're right side up or not. Just gonna pop that right in there. There we go, and pull back the prongs on the back. You could also use eyelets and an eyelet setter if you wanted to do that too. Now, something I really like to do, and you don't have to do this, is I like to tear the vellum and tear my pattern paper just to give it kind of an old-fashioned vintage look. But that is completely up to you. Alright, so now this insert is ready to go in the card, and I'm going to use some adhesive to put it in. That way I'm not going to have brad holes in the back of my greeting card, or invitation rather. And investing in something like a tape runner when you're doing a bunch of cards will really save time and make the process a lot more enjoyable, as long as the tape doesn't gum up or anything. Alright, so now we need to put something around here to kind of close it up, and I thought it would be fun and simple just to use a little organza ribbon. Organza can be a little bit formal, it's definitely romantic, and I think that's a perfect choice for something like this. So to make the ribbon fit through the buckle, I'm simply going to cut it at an angle. And I always keep separate scissors for ribbon and cloth rather than my paper scissors, because paper will dull sewing scissors, so I always keep one set that's just for ribbon or cloth. And if you can, you know, spare a pair to do that with, I highly recommend it. So now I'm just going to pull out enough ribbon that I can tie either a bow or a knot. I think because, even though this is thick ribbon, because it's so light and sheer and airy, I could actually afford to put a bow in there. And it's really quite light, so I don't think it would add on too much extra postage. I'm going to cut a little more than I think I need, so I can feed a little bit more through there, make sure I have room to tie a good bow. Oh, it's so pretty. Very elegant, very easy. And I know some of you guys that make cards all the time might want to do something a little more elaborate, and that's great. I also know that there's a lot of folks that are making their first cards ever, doing their wedding invitations, and I want this to be doable, and I don't want anyone to get overwhelmed. So if you have some tips for taking it to the next level that you want to share in the comments below, or any tips for new brides on making their invitations, please share, because the rising tide lifts all boats and we all can help one another. But you can even use these tips for your Christmas card making, or anytime you need to make things in multiple. It's always fun the first 3 you make, and then when you're like looking at, you know, card number 25, you're like, oh my, why did I choose to add that step? Oh, and that's elegant and it's pretty. So then what I'm going to do is just notch the ends here. So to notch the ends, you just fold the ribbon in half. Okay, and you're going to cut at an angle. Oh, I just cut it the wrong way. Okay, don't do that. Here's how you notch your ribbons. And I just thought I was going to do it the right way. It's been a day, let me tell you. So I'm going to fold it like that, and I'm going to cut up. There we go. Now we have a beautiful V-notch there. See how it just kind of fans? Actually, probably can see it if I put my hands behind it. But luckily, the nice thing about organza is you don't really notice if you make an error because it's so pretty and sheer. It's not glaring. I'm just going to fix that. There we go. So both of our notches are V-notches, and that's all there is to it. Of course, if you want to dress it up more, you can by adding some pearls in the corner or a few rhinestones. But the nice thing about this is someone can slide off the belly band or just simply untie the ribbon and see all the beautiful information on the inside. And like I said before, if you make a postcard to go on top, it's going to make it easier to slide into the envelope, and it's also going to make it easier on your postal sorting machine, so you don't end up having to spend an arm and a leg to mail these. This simple design can be made so many different ways to suit your special day. I do hope you give it a try, and let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you think you want to order some of these cute rhinestone slides and buckles, check out Totally Dazzled. They have a 10% off coupon code, thefrugalcrafter, in the video description, so you can save your money. And if you're buying a bunch for your wedding day, that could really add up. And that's really a great way to make an inexpensive invitation that people will cherish and keep for years to come. I want to thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.